They thought silence would protect them. They thought shadows could hide fingerprints, whispers, and double lives. But tonight the mask slips. The laughter stops. Because when the truth gets bored of waiting, it doesn't knock, it explodes. What was buried is breathing. What was hidden is screaming. And the same crowd they manipulated is about to watch the story flip in real time. They're not being attacked. They're being revealed. And once the secret goes public, there's no rewind, no escape, no hiding from what's about to go viral. They wore the mask so long they forgot it was fake. Smiles rehearsed, sympathy borrowed, morals rented just long enough to look convincing. In public they played heroes. In private, they sharpened knives and called it strategy. That's the funny part. Everyone believes the performance until the lighting changes. Until one crack appears, and once a crack shows, the whole illusion starts laughing at itself. They thought masks were armor. They thought pretending was power. But a mask doesn't protect you. It suffocates you. You start lying not just to others, but to your own reflection. Every move becomes heavier, every smile tighter, every word rehearsed twice. Because deep down, they know the truth is patient. Truth doesn't chase, it watches, it waits. It lets ego do the work. They confused silence for safety. They mistook compliance for loyalty. They assumed that because no one spoke, no one saw. But people see everything. They just choose the right moment to remember. And when that moment comes, memory turns into evidence. The same rooms where they felt untouchable suddenly feel small. The same faces that nodded in agreement now look unfamiliar. Because masks only work when everyone agrees to play along. What they never understood is this: exposure doesn't start with noise. It starts with discomfort. With little pauses in conversations. With eyes that stop trusting. With laughter that sounds forced. The crowd senses it before it knows it. Something's off. Something doesn't add up. And once doubt enters the room, the mask starts slipping on its own. They built their confidence on secrecy. On the belief that darkness is invisible, but darkness is loud when light hits it. Every hidden move leaves a pattern. Every manipulation leaves a trail. Every fake smile leaves residue. You don't erase behavior, you stack it, and stacks collapse. Not dramatically at first, slowly, quietly. One missing piece at a time. They laughed at honesty, called it weakness. They mocked transparency, said it was non-V. But honesty doesn't rush. It doesn't need to perform. It just stands there breathing, while lies sprint themselves into exhaustion. The more they tried to control the narrative, the more obvious the control became. Strings start showing. Scripts start repeating. Characters forget their lines. The mask begins to itch. They adjust it too often. Over-explain too much. Defend things no one questioned. That's when the audience leans in. That's when curiosity sharpens. Because innocence doesn't panic. Innocence doesn't overreact. Innocence doesn't rewrite history every time someone asks a simple question. And the cruel joke. The mask falls not because someone attacks it, but because it gets heavy. Carrying two faces drains you. Pretending requires maintenance. Secrets need babysitting. Lies need updates. And eventually, they trip over their own performance. One contradiction here, one screenshot there. One witness who got tired of protecting someone else's guilt. When the mask finally drops, it doesn't shatter. It melts. And everyone realizes they weren't dealing with a mastermind. Just someone terrified of being seen. Terrified that without the costume, there's nothing impressive underneath. No power. No control. Just exposure staring back at them with a grin that says, "You did this to yourself." Because the truth didn't attack them. The truth simply stepped into the light and waited. They didn't think it would surface like this. They assumed what was done quietly would stay quiet forever. Closed doors, private chats, backroom deals. Little favors exchanged in the dark and labeled as necessary. They told themselves everyone does it. That's how they slept at night. That's how they justified the pattern. Because once you normalize the dark, you stop recognizing it as dangerous. Hidden actions always feel powerful at first. There's a rush in knowing something others don't. A thrill in pulling strings without fingerprints. They mistook secrecy for intelligence, manipulation for strategy. Every secret became a badge of superiority. Look how clever we are. Look how untouchable. But secrecy doesn't make you smart. It makes you reckless. You start believing you're invisible. They forgot one thing. The world records everything now. Screens remember. Messages echo. People save receipts even when they smile in your face. What feels buried is usually just paused, and pauses end. Especially when egos grow louder than caution. Especially when someone involved stops being afraid. They weren't careful because they thought they didn't need to be. That's the arrogance. You get comfortable. You reuse the same tricks. You trust the wrong people. You brag in whispers. You underestimate silence. You assume loyalty is permanent. But loyalty has an expiration date when fear turns into disgust. Every hidden action leaves a shadow, and shadows stack. Patterns form. Connections get made. One message looks harmless. 10 messages look intentional. One move looks accidental. Repeated moves look planned. Suddenly the story writes itself, and it doesn't need imagination. Just alignment. They told lies so often they stopped tracking them. Different versions for different audiences. Each group fed a slightly altered truth. That works until those groups compare notes, until timelines overlap, until someone notices the math doesn't add up. That's when exposure starts breathing. Not loudly. Not yet. Just enough to be alive. The funny thing about exposure is that it doesn't require proof at first. It requires curiosity. Once people start asking questions, answers become dangerous. Silence looks guilty. Denial looks rehearsed. Anger looks defensive. The more they react, the more attention they attract. And attention is the enemy of secrets. They thought control meant deleting evidence. But evidence doesn't live in one place. It lives in memories, backups, screenshots, voice notes, witnesses who were quiet for their own reasons. People who watched, waited, and learned. You don't erase behavior. You multiply it across people who saw it differently. And when one piece comes out, it gives permission for the rest. Someone speaks. Another confirms. Another adds context. The picture sharpens. What was once rumor gains bones. What was once denial gains dates, times, names. The dark doesn't like detail. Detail is light. They panic when they realize the story is no longer theirs to tell. Spin stops working. Damage control looks like guilt management. Apologies feel calculated. Explanations feel late. The crowd doesn't need perfection. It needs honesty. And honesty is the one thing they never practiced. Hidden actions collapse because they rely on everyone staying quiet forever. That's not a plan. That's a gamble. And the house always wins. Someone always gets tired of carrying someone else's mess. Someone always decides the truth is lighter than loyalty. Once exposed, the same actions they defended become the very things that define them. Context disappears. Intent doesn't matter. Patterns speak louder than excuses. And suddenly the darkness they thought protected them becomes the spotlight they can't escape. Because what's hidden isn't protected. It's preserved for impact. They never understood the crowd. They thought people were slow, distracted, easy to steer. Smile here, blame there, give them a villain, give them a distraction, and everything stays under control. That's what they believed. But the crowd isn't stupid. It's patient. It watches patterns. It waits for permission to change its mind. Public opinion doesn't move like logic. It moves like instinct. One moment you're respected, untouchable, protected by reputation. The next moment something feels off, not proven, not confirmed, just off. And once that feeling spreads, it doesn't need facts to travel. It needs alignment. A shared pause, a shared glance, a shared thought of, wait, what if we were wrong about them? They built their identity on approval, on applause, on being seen as important. That's the weakness. When your power comes from the crowd can take it back. And it never warns you first. It just stops clapping. Then it starts whispering. Then it starts laughing in a different way. At first, people defend them. That's normal. No one likes admitting they were fooled. So excuses appear. Rationalizations. Maybe it's taken out of context. Maybe it's exaggerated. Maybe they're being targeted. But defenses weaken fast when new pieces surface. When patterns repeat. When the story doesn't stay still. Public opinion loves confidence until confidence turns into arrogance. Loves authority until authority turns defensive. The moment they start lecturing the crowd instead of listening, the mood shifts. The moment they act offended instead of accountable, sympathy dries up. The crowd doesn't reward pride under pressure. It punishes it. They tried to control the reaction. Statements released. Faces rehearsed. Words chosen by teams. But the crowd can smell scripting. Authenticity doesn't sound polished. It sounds messy. And when everything feels polished, it feels fake. That's when comments turn sharp. That's when jokes start appearing. Memes, clips, short moments taken out of long explanations. And short moments win. Once humor enters, it's over. Ridicule spreads faster than anger. You can argue with critics, but you can't fight laughter. The crowd bonds over mockery. It becomes entertainment. And when someone becomes entertainment, their authority evaporates. No one fears what they laugh at. They underestimated how fast loyalty switches sides. People don't leave all at once. They drift, one by one, quietly at first, then visibly, a follow unfollowed, a name removed, a photo deleted, signals, and others notice the signals. Safety is in numbers, and the numbers are moving. The crowd doesn't need a final verdict. It operates on momentum. Once momentum turns, everything is reinterpreted. Old success becomes suspicious. Past praise becomes questionable. Even good actions get reframed as manipulation. That's the brutality of public opinion. It doesn't revise gently. It rewrites aggressively. They thought they could wait it out. Let the storm pass. But storms don't pass when the crowd is still feeding them. Every reaction keeps it alive. Every denial adds fuel. Silence looks strategic. Speaking looks desperate. There's no perfect move once the tide shifts. The crowd doesn't ask for truth. It decides what feels true. And feelings spread faster than facts. One viral moment outweighs years of image building. One clip replaces 1,000 speeches. Because attention is currency, and the crowd decides who gets bankrupt. They spent years building a throne made of perception. And perception is fragile. It cracks under pressure. When public opinion turns, it doesn't just walk away. It flips. The same voices that praised now dissect. The same eyes that admired now scrutinize. The same crowd that lifted them now enjoys watching gravity work. They thought there would be an exit. A back door. A quiet apology. A strategic disappearance until things cooled down. That's always the fantasy. That consequences are negotiable. That accountability is optional if you play it smart enough. But once secrets go viral, the game changes. Virality doesn't negotiate. It doesn't sleep. It doesn't forget. The moment it spreads, control evaporates. You don't decide where the story goes. The story decides what's left of you. Screens carry leads faster than truth ever could. Context dies first. Nuance follows. All that remains are fragments sharp enough to cut reputation into pieces. And everyone gets a copy. They try to run damage control like it's a fire drill. Lawyers. Statements. Carefully chosen words meant to sound human without admitting anything real. But the internet doesn't listen for words. It listens for fear. And fear leaks through everything. The pauses, the stiffness, the contradictions between yesterday's confidence and today's caution. Once it's viral, time speeds up. Hours feel like weeks. Every refresh brings a new angle, a new reaction, a new person dissecting motives they never explained well in the first place. Silence becomes suspicious. Speaking becomes a mistake. Every move is wrong because the crowd already decided the direction. They thought disappearing would help. Going quiet, waiting for attention to shift. But silence doesn't erase momentum. It confirms it. Others fill the gap. Speculation becomes narrative. Narrative becomes belief. And belief doesn't need permission. The story grows without them. That's the part no one prepares for. Being irrelevant in your own scandal. People they trusted start distancing. Not loudly. Carefully. No statements, just absence. Because association becomes liability. Everyone is protecting their own image now. Loyalty doesn't survive exposure. Loyalty survives privacy. Once things go public, everyone does the math. They look for allies. Few answer. Fewer defend. Because defending requires credibility. And credibility is contagious in reverse. One defense pulls you into the fire. Most people don't burn for someone else's secrets. They step back and let the spectacle continue. What traps them isn't the accusation. It's the permanence. Screenshots don't age. Clips don't forget. Algorithms don't forgive. Every search becomes a reminder. Every introduction comes with context they didn't choose. The past isn't behind them anymore. It's attached. They realize there's no reset button. No matter how many good things they do next, the stain stays searchable. Redemption requires time, consistency, humility. 3 things panic doesn't allow. They want it over quickly. But virality stretches moments into monuments. The worst part is watching others discuss their life like a case study. Strangers analyzing behavior, psychologizing intent, turning mistakes into entertainment. They aren't a person anymore. They're content. And content doesn't get empathy. It gets engagement. They try to explain themselves privately. Messages sent, calls made, but explanations feel small compared to exposure. Personal conversations can't compete with public perception. Once the crowd labels you, every action confirms the label. Even apologies look strategic. Even silence looks guilty. They thought being smart would save them. That intelligence outplays accountability. But intelligence without integrity only sharpens the fall. You can't think consequences once everyone is watching. You can only endure them. No escape doesn't mean prison. It means permanence. Living with the echo. Knowing every move will be filtered through what happened. Knowing trust doesn't return the way it left. Knowing that some doors don't close quietly. They slam and stay shut. The secret didn't just go viral. It rewrote who they are allowed to be from this moment forward.